In the bustling city of Abuja, the sun rose over Malik's estate like a golden shield. Malik stood on his balcony, watching the city wake up. Beside him, Halima poured tea, her face glowing with the peace of a woman who had found true love. But miles away, in a cramped apartment provided by Malik, Yusuf and Sadiq sat in darkness. The grocery store Malik had bought for them was doing well, but the profits weren't enough to buy the Range Rovers they craved. To them, the store was a prison of honest labor. Every time they saw Malik's face on a business magazine, their blood boiled. "He is treated like a god while we sell bags of salt and tins of milk," Yusuf spat, throwing a ledger across the room. The seeds of jealousy had finally sprouted into a poisonous vine. Chief Ibrahim, the man who had mocked Al-Haji Dauda in the village square, had moved to the city to expand his own construction business. He had lost several government contracts to Malik's superior firm. One afternoon, he pulled his black sedan up to the brothers' grocery store. He didn't come to buy bread, he came to buy souls. "It is a shame," Ibrahim whispered, leaning over the counter. "The brothers of a billionaire living like common traders. Malik is keeping the lion's share for himself and giving you the bones." Sadiq looked at Yusuf. The chief's words were like fuel on a fire. Ibrahim offered them a deal. Help him bring down Malik's latest skyscraper project, and he would make them millionaires in their own right. Malik's newest project was the Zaria Towers, a luxury apartment complex intended to house the city's elite. It was his pride and joy. Using the keys Malik had given them in a moment of trust, Yusuf and Sadiq entered the construction site at midnight. Following Chief Ibrahim's instructions, they replaced the high-grade steel reinforcements with cheap, rusted metal provided by Ibrahim's secret warehouse. They moved like ghosts, their hearts pounding not with fear, but with the thrill of bringing their brother down to their level. "If the building cracks," Sadiq whispered, "his reputation dies. He will be the beggar billionaire once again." A week later, the city building inspectors arrived for a surprise check. Malik walked with them, confident in his integrity. However, the lead inspector, who had been bribed by Chief Ibrahim, pointed directly to the section where the brothers had swapped the materials. "This steel is brittle," the inspector announced loudly. The news hit the media within hours. Headlines screamed, "Is the billionaire cutting corners?" Malik's stock prices began to tumble. In their small apartment, Yusuf and Sadiq toasted with expensive champagne they couldn't afford, watching the news with wicked smiles. They didn't care about the lives that would be lost if the building fell. They only cared about the fall of their brother. Halima noticed the change in Malik. He wasn't eating, and his eyes were constantly fixed on his phone. "Malik, you have enemies," she told him as they sat in the garden. "But the enemy who knows your house is more dangerous than the one outside." Malik shook his head. "I want to believe my brothers have changed, Halima. I gave them the store to teach them value." Halima didn't argue, but she decided to act. She contacted a private investigator to watch the construction site. She knew that Malik's heart was too kind to see the snakes in his own garden, but her love was a shield that would not sleep. The private investigator followed Yusuf and Sadiq to a dimly lit bush bar on the outskirts of Abuja. There, they met Chief Ibrahim. Money was exchanged, thick envelopes of naira. The investigator snapped photos of the transaction. Yusuf was heard saying, "The next phase is the bank accounts. We have the login details for his charity foundation." They planned to move millions of naira from Malik's foundation for orphans into a fake account in the Cayman Islands, making it look like Malik was stealing from the poor. This was the ultimate betrayal. It wasn't just about business, it was about destroying Malik's soul. Sadiq was the tech-savvy brother. He had once helped Malik set up his home office and knew the bypass codes for the security firewalls. That night, as Malik slept, Sadiq logged into the foundation's server. He began the transfer of 500 million naira. "Just one more click," he muttered, his fingers shaking. But suddenly, the screen turned red. A message appeared. "Access denied. Internal security triggered." Sadiq panicked and shut the laptop. He didn't realize that Malik's head of IT had already flagged his IP address. The trap was beginning to close, but the brothers were too blinded by greed to see it. Alhaji Dauda, now living a quiet life in a small house, felt a heavy spirit. He took a taxi to the brothers' store. He found it closed during business hours. When he went to their apartment, he found it filled with expensive gadgets and designer clothes. "Where did this come from?" he demanded. Yusuf lied, saying Malik had given them a bonus, but Dauda saw the look in their eyes, the same look he used to have when he valued titles over family. "Do not touch what does not belong to you," he warned. "The ground that swallows a brother's sweat will eventually swallow the one who stole it." Despite Sadiq's failure to transfer the full amount, the attempted transfer was leaked to the press by Chief Ibrahim. The public was outraged. Protesters gathered outside Malik's gates, shouting "thief" and "fake philanthropist." Malik stood in his office, looking at the evidence Halima had gathered. He saw the photos of his brothers with Chief Ibrahim. He felt a pain sharper than the rejection in the village square. "They didn't just want my money," Malik whispered to the empty room. "They wanted my destruction." He called his lawyer, but he didn't tell him to file a lawsuit. He told him to prepare a family gathering. Malik invited Yusuf, Sadiq, and Alhaji Dauda to the mansion for a celebration of the store's success. The brothers arrived wearing gold chains, thinking they had won. Chief Ibrahim was also invited, much to his surprise. They all sat at the long mahogany table. The air was thick with tension. Malik didn't serve food. Instead, he placed a laptop in the center of the table and pressed play. The video showed the brothers swapping the steel at the construction site. Then it showed the photos of them taking money from Ibrahim. The silence that followed was deafening. Chief Ibrahim tried to stand up. "This is a fabrication," he shouted. Malik looked at him with cold, steady eyes. "The police are in the kitchen, Chief, and the building inspectors you bribed have already confessed." Ibrahim slumped back into his chair, his face turning the color of ash. Yusuf and Sadiq fell to the floor, clutching Malik's feet. "It was the chief. He manipulated us," Yusuf wailed. But Malik pulled his feet away. "A man can only be manipulated if he has a hole in his heart for greed to enter. You are my blood, and you tried to kill my name." Alhaji Dauda stood up, his hand trembling as he pointed at his sons. "I thought I was the one who brought shame to this family," he said, his voice cracking. "But you are monsters. You tried to ruin the brother who saved us from the dust." He turned to Malik. "Do not show them mercy, my son. If you forgive them now, they will only learn how to hide their knives better next time." The room was filled with the sound of the brothers sobbing. For the first time, the chairman saw that wealth was a curse to those without character. The police entered and handcuffed Chief Ibrahim. Because Yusuf and Sadiq were family, Malik gave them a choice: go to prison for 20 years or sign a confession and leave Nigeria forever with nothing but the clothes on their backs. They chose the latter. They were stripped of the store, the gadgets, and the clothes they had bought with blood money. They were escorted to the border of a neighboring country and left in the dirt, just as Malik had once stood in the red dust of Zaria. The cycle had completed itself. With the truth revealed, the city cleared Malik's name. He spent double the original budget to tear down the compromised sections of Zaria Towers and rebuild them with the strongest materials available. He renamed the building the Halima Pillars in honor of his wife's wisdom. The public's trust returned tenfold. People saw that Malik wasn't just a billionaire, he was a man who valued truth over profit. However, the betrayal had left a scar on Malik's heart that no amount of success could fully heal. Zainab, Malik's mother, was heartbroken. She had lost 2 sons to exile and greed. She sat with Malik in the mansion. "Is there no way to bring them back?" she asked. Malik held her hand. "Mama, some people must lose everything to find their souls. If I kept them here, I would be feeding the demons that want to kill me. They need to know what it's like to survive without a billionaire brother to bail them out. Zainab nodded, realizing that Malik's cruelty was actually a form of tough love. While Malik rebuilt his business, Halima's foundation grew. She used the scandal to create a transparent system that proved every naira went to the orphans. She became a symbol of integrity in Abuja. Together, they became the ultimate power couple. They didn't go to clubs or throw lavish parties. They spent their evenings visiting the schools they funded. Malik realized that his wealth was finally being used for its true purpose, not to show off, but to lift others up. 6 months later, a letter arrived for Malik. It was from Sadiq. He was working as a porter in a market in Cotonou, carrying heavy bags, just as Malik had worked as a laborer in Zaria. The letter was short. "Brother, I finally understand. The weight of the bag is nothing compared to the weight of my guilt. I don't ask for money. I only ask that one day you tell my son my name so he knows what not to become." Malik folded the letter and put it in a drawer. He didn't reply, but he didn't burn it either. Malik returned to Zaria one last time. He didn't come in a convoy of 30 cars. He came in one simple SUV with Halima. He built a modern hospital and a library for the village. He didn't put his name on the buildings, he put his mother's name. The villagers who had once mocked him now stood in line to thank him. He saw the woman at the kiosk who refused him credit. She tried to hide, but Malik walked up to her and bought a loaf of bread, paying her 10 times the price. "Keep the change," he said with a smile. "No one is a loser forever." Alhaji Dauda spent his final years teaching the young men of the village about the dangers of pride. He became a true elder, respected not for his wealth, but for his stories of redemption. On his deathbed, he held Malik's hand. "You are the greatest gold I ever brought to Zaria," he whispered. When he passed, the whole village mourned. Malik buried him with honor, knowing that his father had finally died as a man of character, not a man of titles. Years later, Malik sat in his garden, watching his children play. He told them the story of the Ghana Must Go bag and the red dust of Zaria. He taught them that money is like the wind. It can blow in and it can blow out. But character is like the Iroko tree. It stands firm regardless of the weather. He looked at Halima and knew that the greatest deal he ever made was choosing love over status. The story of the beggar billionaire was no longer a story of shame, but a legend of how a family lost its way and found its heart through the fire of truth. If this story kept your heart racing, don't let the fire stop here. Subscribe to African Folktales by Marie Chi for more chilling village mysteries and life-changing lessons. Tap the bell so every new folktale reaches you first. Tell us in the comments what you think about the story. Share this story with friends and family so they too can remember.